Hi guys, I hope you're well. Matt Rhodes here, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on things going on in arm wrestling from my perspective, my point of view. I've seen a lot of kind of news stories on different channels and people speculating. So I'll just let you know where I am in it all. So negotiations continue between myself and East vs West to host the East vs West at the Siberian Power Show, which takes place on March 28th and 29th. Of 2026. There we have a huge strongman tournament, fitness bikini, bodybuilding, MMA, and we've had arm wrestling in the past. Last year the main event featured Schoolboy, so we're very used to it. So I'm trying to get that deal done. Devon Larratt has been vocally, publicly very supportive of the match going ahead, and of course it's in Vitaly Laletin's home city, so it's a true kind of a Rocky story where Devon could come to Siberia and take on Vitaly Laletin. However, so far, I can't say there's been huge progress. There's certainly nothing agreed whatsoever. Of course, there's now been talk of Vitaly versus Devon. One of the staff members that works for East vs West went on a Russian YouTube channel, one incidentally that was firmly against the new ownership and very pro-Engin, and said that in her belief it was very unlikely that it would take place in Russia, even though she hadn't been part of any of the negotiations. So I don't think any of those things are helpful whatsoever, and it's confused things more for fans. So all I can say is that conversations between myself and East vs West owners continue, and we'll see what happens. But so far, no decisions whatsoever have been made. So I'm doing absolutely everything I can because I believe arm wrestling itself desperately needs that match right now. And yeah, I can't think of a better storyline, a better build-up than having it against Vitaly Laletin in Siberia. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, fingers crossed. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't. But I don't want to say more than that because it's private negotiations. I want it to succeed. I want arm wrestling to succeed. So all I can say to you guys as fans is thanks always for all your support, and I'm doing everything I can to make it work. Overall, I've always said I have such a good rap from you guys in arm wrestling. I always have. I've always appreciated all the support. I do think perhaps there was a mistake. East vs West gave certain channels the right to announce matches, and some of those channels seem to have got a bit carried away with their positions. There's one channel, I think it's called Prabeep. He's started talking very negatively about me. It's not helpful whatsoever for the sport. It's not helpful for anything at all. So hopefully some people calm down a little bit. I'm doing everything I can, and yeah. Hopefully we can have news for you guys one way or the other soon, because if it doesn't go this way with East vs West, I will put on a tournament of arm wrestling in Siberia, but using different athletes and a different setup as we did last year. So that's where we are with that, and I hope that clears it up for you guys. I guess the only other thing related to East vs West and the arm wrestling is pretty sad news, which Brian Shaw came out yesterday, quite surprisingly, and said that the chances of him ever collaborating again with East vs West are very unlikely. It's not going to happen. I was surprised to see Brian say that. Normally with his business ventures, he keeps, certainly publicly, things kind of open, but he was quite clear about that. So, of course, that's sad news because I know you guys as fans were very excited about that collaboration. Brian's got a great reputation in strength sports. So, yeah, it's disappointing, and another reason why I think this Vitaly Devon match would be a huge opportunity to give the sport a boost again in Siberia. But Brian's made his decision. It sounds like he may carry on with arm wrestling, but if he does, it will just be his own strongest arm on earth. But of course, he's got a lot of decisions to make there, and I can fully empathize with him because pitting on these large-scale sport festivals is a lot more work than it seems. Georgia versus the world. I've seen, it got very negative publicity in the build-up and during, and now even afterwards. Obviously, that's due to association with people believing it's linked to Engin. I understand that. I've made it no secret my own relationship with Engin wasn't a good one. However, as I said all along, I want to see what Georgia versus the world produce in this first tournament and then make a kind of decision. What I've got to say, if you take all bias out of it, I think they did a pretty good job. Of course, the stadium for the event was too big because they weren't able to sell tickets. It's worrying that they couldn't sell tickets there. I'm not sure why they couldn't, if it wasn't marketed properly. I don't know what the reason behind that is, because arm wrestling, of course, is very popular in Georgia. So the venue would have been a lot better off being smaller, and the venue that they had, they should have brought everybody in much closer to the table, and it would probably look to right. Because the truth is, King of the Table in Dubai never had that many people there either, but as long as you bring everybody in close to the stage, close to the table, it would have helped it a lot. But anyway, lessons will be learned from that, I think. But I've got to say, the live stream, the production, the walkouts, the screens, the matches themselves, the athletes, it was a pretty decent level. If you look at the first ever King of the Table, look at the first ever East versus West, I think they learnt a lot of things from that, Gennady, Roman, and put on a pretty decent event. And it sounds like they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going. So people like to bash it, but like I say, it's here, and you have to take these things seriously. So I don't know what will be. We'll see if they continue, but if they do, it looks like, you know, they're here to make a real statement in the sport. I think that's a fair, unbiased opinion. Like I say, I get why people will have a problem or won't. But there's so much going on in arm wrestling right now. I get calls every week from athletes and also different organizers. A lot of people with ideas, plans. Of course, a lot of athletes are under contract with East versus West, although perhaps not as many as people think, but certainly the really big names are. But you never know what's going to happen in the future. I always supported East versus West very strongly through this time with the problems with Engin, because I wanted East versus West to succeed. Because I just believe it's best to have one major league with all the best guys pulling in it, and that's still my belief. But it's got to work. The format has to be one that's good for fans, otherwise there's no point in having such a league. I did see, you know, people said that Levin had a big problem about what Georgia versus the World had done or said, but I saw Levin was there as a guest of theirs, looked like having a very good time. So it seems like, you know, everybody's getting on, and what will be will be. But I just hope the sport gets back on track. It definitely seems like some people are on a bit of a downer about it, but it's definitely capable of getting better. I know in Switzerland, the top 4 guys, Vitaly, Hermes, Levon, Devon, are going to try and work out a match schedule for the next year. So that's a good positive move, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, that's a very sort of basic update, guys. I just can't give you much more information until I have something concrete from the East versus West owners about Siberia, because otherwise I'm just kind of leading you along, and there's no point to do that. It's not fair on you guys. If I have concrete news, I'll give it to you. In the meantime, I'll do everything I can to make it happen. So as always, guys, thanks for your support. If you have any particular questions, put them in the comments. I read through all your comments and I'll answer them. Catch you next time.